Hey guys, we are here in Columbia right now. I'm about to go walk this house. It's actually pretty nice looking on the outside, excited for it on the inside. We're about 2 miles away from another house that we're trying to purchase. We're having a contractor come out to meet us there in a little bit. But while we're waiting for that, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about this presentation that really impacted me. It's from Jeremiah Johnson, one of the most brilliant salespeople I've ever met. And he's really cracked the code on selling, seller financing, creative selling features, and closing. That's something that I've always struggled with. So I watched this at Flip Hacking Live. And for those of you that don't know, that's our biggest event of the year for seven-figure flipping. It's a 3-day conference. We just held it in Orlando in October. Almost 1,000 people there. Absolutely insane. Some of the top real estate people in the world are coming to that. They're giving all their tactics, all of their information on it. This video really spoke to me. I think it could help a lot of you guys if you're in a similar space to where I am. So give it a watch and let me know what you think down in the comments.
Okay, so I'm going to rip through a few what I think are kind of blocking and tackling, because I think a lot of times we get in here and we get information overload because there's so much actionable intelligence that you guys are being given. But then when you get home, it's like, oh man, what do I do? What do I do? What do I focus on? There's just so much. And so I'm going to cover, the title is Cracking the Code of Seller Motivation and Closing More Deals. But it's not all, I just don't have a silver bullet with like, okay, this is what you say. I will give you some sales closing techniques that I use and that are kind of my go-to, but there are also some fundamentals that I think everybody needs to focus on when they're dealing with sellers that will really help you, because I'll spend some time talking about, so first, I sold books door to door in college. So who am I and why am I up here talking about sales? So during the course of that, we knocked on doors for 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. They moved us away from our town where we went to college, and we did 12 to 14 weeks of straight door-to-door sales. So I got really comfortable in people's living rooms, which I didn't know at the time would be excellent training for acquisition of people's homes, because I'm really comfortable in strangers' living rooms. I mean, I sit down and I feel right at home. And that's one of the first things I do when I get there is I sit down. I don't care if it's on the couch, on the floor, on a chair. It's just like, because you get there and they're pacing, they're nervous. Like, whoa, gosh, what do I do? And if you sit down, you know what it does to them? They're anchored. Even if they're standing there not wanting to talk yet, they're anchored. So that was really what helped me get my start, or really made me, I think, set up to be really good at acquisition for people's homes. I've been in the group for 6 years. My first flip hacking was in San Diego, and I applied for 7-figure, and I was told to go packing. They told me I wasn't worthy yet. I hadn't closed enough deals, and so I went home and started our company, and came back after I'd done about 18 or so deals. I was like, will you guys look at me now? And we went to a deal in San Diego. I went with one, or not in San Diego, but in Utah with Andy, with one of my private lenders. And they were like, okay, you've made it. You've made the cut. So then I've been in the group ever since, and I haven't looked back. I'm a short-term rental coach in the Top Gun program. So if anybody wants to learn short-term rentals, I've got a pretty good setup. I got mine fairly on autopilot. I'm based in Denver. I invest in Wichita and also in Colorado. I worked for another operation. I did acquisition for them for about 2 to 3 years, and I was their top salesperson. It was a husband and wife couple, and I approached them about being a partner, and they didn't want a partner. So I resigned after going to that flip hacking and started my own company, but at a non-compete, which was 2 years. And I learned so much from them about acquisition that I honored what I said I'd do, and I started where I grew up in Kansas. And so that's kind of me in a nutshell. I've done, counting the deals I did for that company, probably 1,000 wholesale deals over the course of the last 8 years. And I've built a really pretty robust, to me it's robust, about $10 million in single family holdings in Kansas and Colorado in 5 years. And I've done that primarily through creative finance, so like what they were talking about yesterday, sub 2, because when I started out, I didn't have a lot of cash to do my own deals. And so I had a few private lenders that were willing to take a risk on me, and I used seller finance and sub 2 as like my go-to weapons, because I got access to people's loans without having credit, because when you first start out, it's really hard to get banks to give you credit. So Sub 2 was like, it was the silver bullet. That was a silver bullet for me. And so on a personal note, I love anything that goes fast. I am a pilot. I did look at Bill's plane, but it was not, it's not a turbo. It wasn't the price. It's not a turbo. I live in the altitude, so that's why I didn't buy it. And I love to go fast, love to ski, love to hunt, fish, anything outdoors. And I love these guys. So that's Blake and Braden, 6 and 10, our new dog Rocky. So those guys are my why and why I do what I do. So I am going to cover 3 main areas with you. One is deal flow and marketing, math and motivation, and then conversion. Conversion is what everybody thinks of when they think of sales, but sales is a funnel, right? And I've been helping a few people recently and coaching a few investors, and what I've realized is stuff that I think is common sense is not necessarily common sense. And so you really need to focus and make sure that we're doing, or you're doing, the correct activities that are going to yield the results that you want. And if you're not doing the right activities, it doesn't matter, you can think you're busy or you can be occupied, but that's not necessarily productive. And newbies, or people that aren't necessarily wired as salespeople, gravitate away from the stuff that's uncomfortable. And the phone can be a 10,000-pound phone if you don't like making seller calls. I just don't want to make them. And so I'll study scripts, I'll read, I'll get on, I'll listen to podcasts, I'll do everything to make myself prepared, but just pick up the 10,000-pound phone, And so you avoid it because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. And sales, for somebody that's not a salesperson, or if you're not rehearsed or if you're not practiced, can be uncomfortable because it feels like you're pushing somebody, or I'm helping them to make a decision, but I'm trying to get them to do what I want, and this is just skeevy. So you really have to work through and practice and understand your numbers and treat it like a business. And the closer you can stay to it being a business transaction and not letting it get personal, the easier it is and the less skeevy, I guess, it feels. So you must, once you figure out what those activities are, you must relentlessly pursue them. So the closest thing to money, like when I hire new people, it's really easy to have information overload, kind of like you do in a weekend like this. Like, oh my gosh, I go home, what do I do? And so you have to ask yourself, what are the closest things to money? And for me, in our business, the closest thing to money for me is being belly to belly, face to face with a seller. That's the closest thing I can get to getting a contract and then the closing. That transaction, when I'm buying a house or one of my team is buying a house, is the closest thing you're going to get to money aside from the closing. And that's what drives closings is how many offers you're making. So it goes back to those activities in deal flow and marketing. If you're not making enough offers, like if your goal is to close 2 deals a month, if you're not making at least 2 offers a month, what are the odds, and even if you are making 2, what are the odds you're really going to get 2 deals? Very slim. And if you're in person, we know the average sales rep can close 25% of the deals face-to-face in our industry, typically. So if you're wanting to close 2 a month, how many offers do you need to make? 8, right? 25% close ratio, you need to be making at least 8 offers. So ask yourself, if I'm wanting to close 2, am I making 8 offers? I can't tell you that. But you can reverse work into your math of where you want to be to hit your goals. So deal flow, you're either going to trade, we've heard a lot about marketing here, and you're either going to trade time or you're going to trade money, right? And you can go the retail route. Everybody I talk to, I tell them to get a list, get with a broker, get with a realtor. 80% of the business in your market is done by 20% of the realtors, typically. So you want to focus your time on that 20%. So if you're going to call, like Caitlin said, 5 realtors a day, make sure it's out of the 20%. Be effective. Be effective with your time. If you're going after wholesalers are just like the realtors. They're just like your sellers. Marketing, there's nothing we can say that's going to make somebody want to sell us their house at half off, is there? I mean, I think I'm a pretty decent salesperson, but I'm not going to convince Ben to sell me his house at half off, right? The only thing that's going to do that is life. So as a marketer, as a salesperson, we want to stay top of mind so when life hits, they think of us, right? And so Wholesalers are the same way. I'm a wholesaler. I've had quite a few disposition people, and they tend to be creatures of habit. So they get their pocket buyers, and they want to call their top 5. Instead of sending it to the list, they want a sure deal. They want somebody that'll close. I want somebody that'll close, somebody that I can depend on. And so you get used to that. So if you as a new investor are just waiting for the emails, I can promise you that you're not seeing all the deals. You're not. You're definitely not seeing the best deals. So you have to treat that like an account management position, and you have to call your wholesalers. When can I buy you a cup of coffee? I really want to understand your business. What can I do to add value to your life? When the next time you get a deal, what do I need to do to get in front of it before you send it to your list? You need to treat those folks like they are your bread and butter, because they are. They are. And that's the same thing with realtors. You got to be top of mind. Wholesalers and then direct to seller, same thing. You send them a card, you get a call. It's all in the follow-up, because very rarely, unless they're super hot, does somebody on the very first call say, just please come take my house. There's a process that goes along with that. And that process is follow-up and systematic follow-up over time. And there's a cadence to it. But if you do that in person, like I said, it's 25% closing ratio. If you're all virtual, it's even higher. You're burning through the leads. I personally am an in-person closer. Our team closes in person, but we've done both. And so the main thing I want to go back to is activity. Focus on the activity to do the things that are driving the results that you want. So if you want 2 deals a month and you're an in-person closer, you got to make 8 offers. If you're not making 8 offers, statistics tell you you're not going to get there. Everybody with me? Tracking? Okay, good. So that is deal flow. So wholesalers, realtors, or direct to seller, it doesn't matter how you do it, you have to treat that like a funnel and aggressively go after those sources. You need to be top of mind when they get a deal. And one more thing, going back, on the wholesalers, every deal they send you, doesn't matter if you love it, hate it, run your numbers on it, and send them an offer. Send them an offer that works for your buying criteria, because you never know when they're going to have one sitting that nobody has made an offer on, and even though you're the lowest, they might come back to you. And if you continue to make offers, they're going to know that you mean business. I would know that you mean business. Even if your offers are incredibly low, over time, okay, so why are your offers so low all the time? You keep giving me offers, what's the deal? Well, it'll end up evoking a conversation, just being relentless with your activities. So, motivation and math. So, with sellers, retail or wholesale, these two things are mutually exclusive. Like they live together on a graph, just like supply and demand do, that we all learn in high school and college if you decide to go. So, there are two sides to this math equation. One is yours, right? We have our numbers of where we can be profitable. And then they have their number of, okay, that's what I want to get out of my house, right? And those two, the goal is to help them to meet at some point on the graph. And so you have to know your numbers. And the math must fit your buying strategy. If it doesn't, you shouldn't do it. So, it can become, especially when you're new, emotional, right? Like, I get tunnel vision on this house. Like, I gotta have it. And what it does is you can get caught up in the moment, almost like the auction phenomenon, where you get bidding, and then all of a sudden you're off the reservation, like, oh my gosh, I should not be offering this much, but I'm going to do it. And then they say yes, and we all know, or you should know that you make your money when you buy, not when you sell, because construction is very unforgiving, and so are investors. If you're wholesaling, they don't care what you have it under contract for. They'll run their numbers, and this is our offer. And so you have to be, you can't go outside of your framework, because it won't do you any good, or you'll end up losing money. So the deal must fit your buying or your exit strategy. So for us, we've adjusted our buying parameters down. These are real formulas. So our team, myself included, 45 to 65% of ARV minus costs. That does not include CapEx. Everybody's probably thinking, woo, that's low. Now, for Denver, that's super low. So we'll go up to 83%. And you can get price compression here where And what I mean by price compression is a kitchen in a $100,000 house costs about the same as it does in a $200,000 house, right? It's the same set of appliances, the same counter, same garbage disposal, and so you've got to buy significantly deeper in a $100,000 house than you do in a $200,000 house. So the higher the ARV, the more cushion you have and more flexibility with your offer, the higher you can bump up that purchase price and the closer you can get to ARV minus cost. But that's a market-specific parameter, and I can't tell you what your markets are. There's too many people in here, too many different markets. But for us, 45 to 65, if we're trying to wholesale the deal, because we're going to mark it up to 70 to 73. And if we're flipping it, like if we just can't get them down to a wholesale, we're in a competitive situation, 65 to 73, but I wouldn't go up to 73 in a 100K house right now. And this is speaking for Kansas. In a 400K house, I would. No problem. I'd even probably go up to 83, but the math is really specific to your market and what your costs are. But you have to know the motivation because, like I said, nothing I can say is going to convince somebody to sell their house for half off, right? So we need somebody that's motivated. So motivation, hot. You get somebody that calls in that's hot. They have a strong sense of urgency due to situational motivation, financial or physical distress, tired landlord, probate, somebody's died, somebody's gotten divorced, strong probability of selling at wholesale levels, or they've expressed to you on the phone that they want to sell at a level that meets your framework. This is I drop everything, I am in the car, I'm on my way to your house, I will bring a contract. What do I need to do? Do you like coffee? I'll pick one up. Like, that's hot. Like, you jump on it. Follow up daily. We do not let that slip through the cracks. Then there's warm. Seller, they've expressed a desire to sell quickly. They've got motivation, but their numbers don't match up with our numbers over the phone. So plus or minus 40, plus or minus 60, plus or minus 80, you still go to the appointment. You know, I don't know how many times I've been told it's a remodeled kitchen and I get there and it's linoleum from 1960, right? So warm is I just need to go see what's going on and really figure out what the ARV is and let's talk and see how motivated you really are. And then cold, tire kickers, they're just looking for an offer, you know, or they're retail. You get there, it's a beautiful house, they're not in a hurry, and they just wanted to see, really, truly, curiously, what you'd offer. And then you want to send one of those to your retail partners. So hot, warm, cold, with follow-up cadence, which we want to be focused on motivation and, again, math. So give you an example. One more thing that I didn't cover that should. Strikes and quick fix numbers. So for our acquisition team, when I train new people, we cover strikes and then quick fix numbers. I don't expect our team to be experts at construction, but I do expect them to be able to do some basic math. So 1,000 square foot house, light is $20 a square foot. It's paint carpet. Medium paint carpet fixtures, maybe some counters, $30 a square foot. Major construction, if we're moving a few walls, like it's not a full gut, but $65 a square foot. And so if they stick to these calculations when they're in an acquisition appointment, we're going to be fairly safe. And so then that's 1,000 square feet, you got 20, 30, or 65,000, you know, ARV, 70% or 65% of that. But then there's one more thing, is strikes. So when we look at a house, I usually look at this on Zillow or Street View before I go out. I want to make sure that it's a normal house in a normal neighborhood. It's not across from a retail center. It's not adjacent to a power plant. It doesn't have big power lines running over the top of it. It's not on a four-way street with a stoplight. Those things are strikes. And what those do is they reduce your buyer pool. And when you have a smaller buyer pool, that's less demand. When you have less demand, price drops, right? So strikes are cumulative. So if you are adjacent to a power plant, backing up to a water treatment sewage facility, across the street from a Walmart, you're in trouble, right? Those are 3 strikes. That's 30% off on top of my 65%. So the numbers you get may be psycho, like crazy low, but it's just, unless you're going, I don't even know what you do with it. You just go in and you got to stick to your numbers. Like, that's our framework. And so you just can't compromise, even though it seems hard to believe. So here's an example. ARV at 250, 2,700 square foot, 2004 build. It's been a rental for the last 5 years. Livable condition, needing a light reno. Offer range, what is it? 112 to 162, based on those numbers, is where it is minus the fix, puts me at 58 to 108, okay? Now, on a $250,000 house, and you're telling me you're going to open up at 60K, Jeremiah? What? So here's something that you should just get really comfortable with, of being uncomfortable, right? So 2 things to know is that low offers when you're brand new are going to make you feel uncomfortable. And I tell new salespeople all the time that when you're opening up, that's an anchor. I don't think we're going to land there, but the seller's probably at 230. So we have some expectations to adjust, right? $250,000 ARV, 1960 linoleum with mold in the basement. I'm going for 60. Like, first I'm probably going to tell, you know what, I'm not going to say my offer. I just am not. I don't want to offend you. You probably throw me out of here. It's a little uncomfortable. No, just come on, just tell me. I know it's probably not what I want. No, I mean, it's really. There might be somewhere, I don't know. If I'd pay cash, close quickly, I guess maybe 60, 70, maybe 80, I don't know. Did you just say 60? Like, they'll spit out their coffee. So, it's a business transaction. You need to be okay with dropping low numbers, because I'm not going to move into the house, Mr. Seller. I can't help it that you've left that leaky sewage pipe in the basement for 20 years. Like, I'm sorry, but it's going to cost a lot of money to fix that up, and that is what I can pay. Oh, well, gosh, I think we're done here, So, but, I guess, and then you could move into closing and negotiation, but you have to set expectations with a solidly low anchor. The anchor is the key, because if you open up at your max allowable offer, which for us here would be 110, 120 maybe, with that, assuming those numbers are right, you have nowhere to go but up, right? So if I open at 60, I can go all the way to 120. They have won a lot, because I don't go up quickly. But if I start at 120, I'm the only place I can go is up from there, and then we're both in trouble, because we're going to end up having price reductions down the road. And nobody likes to have price reductions. So now I'm going to get into conversion. Conversion, in sales, you've got reds, right? Those are people that are absolutely not, I will not buy from you. Those are the colds, usually. Yellows, those are the warms, they're maybes. The better you get at conversion, the better you're going to be at closing more deals. The higher your closing percentage will be, and then you'll have the greens. Those are the layups. Those are the hots. Those are the people, just please, come take my house. Okay, I'm there. So the greens are ones that they're gimmies. So all sales prospects fall into this, right? You've got reds, yellows, greens. You just have to get good at converting the yellows. The people that are really good salespeople can massage it and get them over the line. So a key to this is getting their number, so you know where they're at. There's a lot of words here, and I'm going to read it line by line. So I learned selling books, the average person can say no 7 times. 7 times. And so they may, I don't know what I want for it. I don't know. I'm not telling you my number. I don't know. What's your number? So how much are you looking to get out of the home? What are other houses selling for that are similar? If you decide to sell for cash, what do you think is fair? In today's market, what range of homes, what range are homes like this going for? If I was to buy this and pay you cash, what's the least you'd take for it? When you decide to sell, what's your dream number to sell this at? At the end of the day, repair costs being what they cost, if you didn't have to do them, what do you think you'd sell this for? And then based on the offers that you've been getting, where do I need to be to just buy this darn thing? Come on. Just give me a number. And by the time you ask that so many times, they're going to break down. And especially if you give them your 60, right? Your anchor point. They'll spit out their coffee and they'll be, it's worth at least 150. Oh, okay, so now we're talking, right? So call that the punch in the ribs. If you have to, you drop it really just absurdly low, and they'll give you a number. So, okay. Sales techniques, right? Closing techniques. This 100K slide alert. So these techniques I use over and over and over, and they are just phenomenal. They're not even secret weapons, but they just work. So the only thing we have to leverage in these appointments is the offer, right? Our number, what we're willing to give. And so the minute we surrender that to the seller, we relinquish all power. They can shop you. They can do whatever they want with that number. They can accept it, or they can tell you to go fly a kite. And if I throw a random number out between 1 and 250, I have about 249 chances, 1 out of 249, to get your number, right? So it's not I need to get your number, and then I need to negotiate with you. So you get them to spit it out, and then I use reluctance, right? I am very reluctant. I don't promise anything. I may need to talk to my boss. I may need to call, I may need to call my investor partner, but I really go back and forth with them. So what I heard you say, Mr. Seller, is that you need 150 out of this house. I just don't know if I can get there, given the mold in the basement, the sewage leak, the roof needs replaced, the HVAC is shot. You've let cats run rampant in here for 20 years. I mean, I can barely open my eyes. I'm allergic. So I don't know if I can do the 150. But if I could, if I could get closer to 95, is that something you'd even think about? And then you shut up, right? So you've just, if I could, would you consider? I'm not saying would you do it, but would you consider? We can do this dance for hours, right? If I could, would you? If I could give you 95, would you at least consider it? Are you gonna call 5 more companies? I mean, at least at that point, we're done. And if I could, would you, is a great thing for them to chew on for a little bit, but you really have to stay silent. Like, you just have to. If you break that silence and you rescue them, it loses its effectiveness, and you'll end up spitting out a number higher than what you want. So if I could, would you? If I can do 95. So then if they say, God, Jeremiah, I just can't get there. I really had 150 in mind. I might be able to do 130. I'd have to talk to my brother, but God, 130 is a lot lower than we were thinking. I mean, can you smell the cats in here? I mean, I can't imagine what it's going to take to remediate that, but I get it. I get it. I'm at 95. You're at 130. And I'm just curious, if I could eke out a couple more thousand. I'm not saying I can, but if I could, could we maybe get your brother on the phone? See, again, you got to shut up. Well, I'm just not comfortable. He's busy, or they'll just go back and forth. And so that is very, very effective, and it keeps you from committing your number, right? The other is a box close. So if somebody tells you no, but they don't really give you a reason, well, gosh, man, is it something I said? Is it the contract? Is it the timing of the deal? Or is it the price? You just put them in a box. They got 4 answers, and they're not going to tell you it's you, right? So it just gets them talking. So you can go back before. If I could, would you? No, I wouldn't. Okay, well, is it me? Is it the price? Is it my breath? What is it? And you can go back and forth. This is tennis, right? And get them going back and forth and back and forth. And use those 2 closing techniques indispensably, and they will make you 100K, I guarantee it, easily. If you haven't used them, try it. And then the final one, if you get a really combative seller, I've only used this a few times, right? And this is a funny one. It's comic relief, but if you're in the house, I take my computer all the time, and I'll run comps, use a hotspot on my phone, and if I've got somebody that is just being a pickle, right? They just don't want to cooperate. They won't give me any information. They're giving me a hard time. And I'm sitting there. I will walk out without saying a word, and you will be surprised they will chase you to your car. Wait, I'm sorry. You salespeople, I just don't know what to do. And I'm sorry, I must have said something to offend you. I didn't mean to. So with that, I'll leave you with some Mohawks. I appreciate your time. Hopefully this was helpful. Thank you.
Guys, how impactful is that? I know it changed my mind. I hope it did for yours too. If you guys want to know any more about Flip Hacking Live, or if you want to just commit now and get your tickets to it, check the link right down below, and I hope to see you guys there.